Hey y'all, it's Kayla J here. And so today I really want to get into Black love. So just as Black Lives Matter became a problem, the Karens of the world are now deciding to tackle Black love. And so please get your pencils because I'm about to take y'all to school on this very, very important issue and why we just can't be great. And so if you have not watched my previous video on the Willie Lynch letters, please go back and watch it. It'll give you a little bit more insight into what has literally been indoctrinated in Black people, in Black culture, and we see it 300, 400 years later. All right, so in the Willie Lynch letters, the slave marriage, his idea was to breed 2 female slaves and 2 male slaves together. Once they had their offspring, or once they became pregnant, he would send the male slaves away and leave the 2 pregnant female slaves to fend for themselves. If one female slave had a boy and the other had a girl, under the psychological influence, they will raise their offsprings in reverse roles. And so the female slave, being frozen by fear of her son ending up like the slave that was literally beat, torn apart, tarred and feathered, she would raise her son to be physically strong but mentally weak and dependent on her as the mother. The female slave will, being left alone in her male image, being destroyed because of all the slaves that were beaten in front of her, she will begin to raise her daughter as independent and literally not depending on the male slave for the things that she used to depend on him for. The slave master, of course, will then breed the 2 offsprings together and continue this cycle. And he says this is an orbiting cycle that will continue on its axis forever. So I want to talk about what happened before this. If, of course, you hadn't watched my previous video. So before this, the slave master took the strongest, the meanest, the smartest, the most respected slave, the biggest, most respected slave male on the plantation. He beat him, he tarred, so that's black tar, burns the skin, put it all over the slave skin, put feathers on the slave skin, and that's humiliating in itself. Did this in front of all the other slaves, took 2 horses, tied both of the male slaves to the 2 horses, beat the horses until they tore the slave apart while setting the slave on fire. And of course, he did this in front of the whole in front of the whole plantation, but he also took the other the other male slaves and beat them within an inch of their lives. Careful not to kill them, of course, to not waste product. But he made sure to do this in the presence of the females and the children. In doing this, he completely destroyed the male protective image for the female slave. By pulling apart the strongest male slave, and beating the others, this left the female slave alone and unprotected, with the male slave's with the female slave's image of the male slaves destroyed. And this left her this took her from a state of dependence on the male slaves to independence on herself, because her example, this man who was supposed to protect her, is now beaten and cannot protect her or killed, you know. And so this took the female slave and made her independent. This is exactly what the slave master wanted. In this state, of course, she raises her offspring, her male and her female, in opposite roles. So her daughter to be independent and her son to be totally dependent on her. And so he said that this would literally last for years. And so it's been 308 years since he's written these letters, and we see this today. Like, you all ever wonder why in Black families, daughters are pressured so much? Like, daughters are working 3 jobs before they're 18 and have to take care of the rest of the younger siblings, have to cook and clean and know how to do all these different things. But then we see the boys, no responsibility, double standards, can do what they want, don't know how to cook, don't know how to clean, don't know how to take care of themselves. We see that these Black men, not all Black men, this is not a Black men bashing, this is not it, but we see that passed down from slavery, Black men were dependent on their mothers. And so getting married, this lessens the prospects, because getting married, of course, it's like they're looking for another mother. They're not looking for a wife. They're not looking for a partner. While the Black woman, the independent Black woman, is seen, or is, you know, like, she wants a man who will match her independence. But of course, weren't raised like that. It wasn't indoctrinated in Black men like that. And so, of course, keep in mind, you all, this did not reach every plantation. So this is not everybody's way of thinking, but we see this a lot of the times in the Black community, the difference between the women and the difference between the men. And so also in the same breath, you all, light skin versus dark skin, because this didn't reach every plantation, light skin versus dark skin didn't either, but we see that worldwide. And so just because this thought of an independent Black woman and a dependent Black male didn't get indoctrinated into everyone, we still see it. It's still prevalent in our community. And so with that, you all, we just see how this has caused a divisiveness in the Black community. And so, of course, like I said, the term, the independent Black woman. And as slavery ended, you all, these dynamics literally continue on from generation to generation. And so it's like, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I'm just saying, like, throughout the years, we've seen how this has kind of torn apart the Black union. And this is how it was ingrained to be. And so, but we have seen a lot of beautiful Black relationships where this isn't the case. And so I'm not saying this is the case for everything and for everyone, you all, but this is something that was used as a tactic to keep Black people apart, to stop the union of Black marriages of Black people. And so now I want to talk about welfare. So while statistically, of course, there are more white people on welfare in America, whites in America have been giving liberties to get themselves off of welfare that Black people just have not been given. And so, for example, in the 30s and 40s, there was a mother pension plan. So if their husband would die, white women were given their late husband's pension, while Black women were denied these liberties because of the separate but equal law. And so while welfare was not created for Black people, it was created for the poor. But because of the structure and the system of America, Black people oftentimes ended up in that poor category. So of course, benefited from welfare, but it was not created for Black people. Nothing in this system, in this American system, was created for Black people. I digress. So another way to keep the Black family down, to keep the Black family apart, was New York's Man in the House law. This was a law that said welfare workers were required to make unannounced visits to determine if a man was living in the home. If evidence of male presence was found in the home, welfare cases were closed. This is a great example of the microaggressions towards Black people even today. So yes, the law, of course, was for everyone, but because of the prejudice and the racism ingrained in the individual employees of the welfare system, how much you want to bet all the pop-ups happen to Black people? You know, how much do you want to bet? And so this, of course, caused a wedge between Black people. There's a beautiful movie, it's called Claudine, 1974, with James Earl Jones and Diane Carroll. Among other parallels in society, one that was profound to me was the fact that they wanted to marry each other, but in order for them to marry each other, they had to jump through so many hoops and loops to stay on welfare. And it's just kind of like, you know, Black love. They wanted to get married, but if they got married, the money, she would lose her welfare money, and she needed that money to raise her kids. And excuse my language, but James Earl Jones in the movie was just like, you know, if I get on welfare, they want to grab me, they want to take me by the balls. And literally that's what happened. Took the people through a ringer in order just to qualify for welfare, you all. So that is another way that Black people have been torn apart because of that law. And I'm sure there are that law in other states as well with welfare. Lastly, crack in the 80s. So I don't care what anyone says. I know the government is responsible for crack in the 80s, but I'm not going to go there. But there's this amazing documentary. It's called The 13th by Ava DuVernay. It's on Netflix, so please go check it out. But crack was pushed into the black neighborhoods, giving millions of black men jobs and hooking even more black people on drugs. So conveniently, the government begins their war on drugs, sending thousands of black men to jail, further causing the divide in the household, dwindling the black family structure. They weren't just, going away for a couple of years either. These black men were going away for years, like a couple decades, for these non-violent crimes. And here comes one of y'all's favorite presidents, Bill Clinton, with his 3 strikes rule. He's since then apologized for this rule because it targeted black people. And I don't even want to hear this about, let me not go there, but it's unacceptable. So he can keep his apology. But the 3 strikes rule, where 3 strikes you're out. So you've been busted 3 times for marijuana or for crack, then you're going to jail for life. And simultaneously, you all, on the other side of town, white people were getting community service for having crack or cocaine on them. This law was, while it didn't have in the law, this is for black people. We're only going to target black people because of the racism, because of the microcosms in racism. This law was directed towards black people and literally has destroyed the black community. And so I do want to point out really quickly why Southern crack was so appealing to black men, to black people. Yes, of course, the money, but years prior, black men couldn't get jobs. So when black men went off to World War I, World War II, they went off, and of course, not even black men, white men too, all men went off to war. Of course, women took the jobs. And so when they came back, they expected women to just go back to the homes, but this, of course, was the women's movement and stuff like that. And women weren't just going to go back to the home. They wanted to stay out in the workforce. And so when they came back, besides the factory jobs, of course, black women were seen as less of a threat. And so now not only did black men have to compete with white men, black men had to compete with white women and black women. And of course, black women got the jobs over black men because they were seen as less of a threat. And so now we have black men losing jobs and feeling emasculated because they can't provide for their family, and feeling a sense of futility, feeling a sense of helplessness. Black men, they simply couldn't get jobs, or maybe they got jobs that felt like was beneath them. And so this, of course, made black men become terrible prospects. And maybe some stuff happened haphazardly, you all, but I believe it is truly all a part of a big plan for the demise of black people. But let me stay on track. So this, of course, black men becoming terrible marriage prospects, and this increased crime, of course. Yes, they could have done the right thing like Spike Lee, but when your kids are starving, when you don't have any money, when you can't get a job, crime. And I'm not gonna go there. Sorry, I'm not gonna go there. But you turn to crime. And so I don't get it, but I get it. I've never had to be there, but I can't judge somebody who is there, who had to turn to crime to feed their children. And so black men couldn't get jobs, so of course they turned to crime. And this also is why we see an increase in multi-families with multiple babies. So basically people with a lot of baby daddies or a lot of baby mamas. So black men couldn't get jobs, so they found their pride in something else, making babies. They were discriminated against from jobs, but they know that what I can do is I can make a baby, and I can find pride in that because, I made a seed. I have a seed. I have a son. I have a daughter. And they knew that they could sell drugs and commit these crimes. And so, like I said, I don't say this to bash black men, but I just say this to highlight the disparities in America and how it just didn't happen like this. Black people aren't just thugs, aren't just, we don't care about making a better life for ourselves, but you have generations of helplessness, generations of futility, generations of just not being able to get jobs. This is what you get. You get black men who see a way out, who see the life of selling drugs, who see the life of committing crimes, and knows that, you know, my daddy did it because he couldn't get a job when he came back from war, you know, and my uncles did it, and so this is what you get. So let me wrap it up. But the devil seeks to destroy marriages and unity. Think about it. So the devil didn't attack Adam until it was Adam and Eve. He wasn't thinking about Adam. But when Eve came along, that's when the devil set in, and he began, of course, to tempt Eve. And he was able to slither and cause divisiveness among them. And so together, you all, the Black family, Black love can heal, Black love can save, Black love can dominate. And in the system we live in, you all, they know that. And that's why they work so hard to destroy Black love. And so they will stop at nothing until Black people want nothing to do with each other. And this is why we have to celebrate Black love. This is why we have, when we see those couples who've made it 70, 60 years, 80, we see those couples who've made it, and we have to celebrate them because they were the ones who put everything aside, and they compromised for each other. They compromised to make it through, and to have a positive, thriving marriage to show the next generations. And so Black love breaks barriers, y'all. That's why Black love is important. And so many people question it. Like the purpose of this post was because a woman questioned, you know, why do you say Black love? Why can't you just say love? Love is not love when your love has been tried, when your love has been torn apart, when a man has literally written letters on how to separate your love. It's not just love anymore. And so that's what makes Black love beautiful. And so we have to prove Willie Lynch wrong. We cannot let this control us any longer. We have to reflect on the past and break these generational curses and chains, and stay in Black love, stay in love, and do what we can to uplift Black love. So y'all, stay woke. Love you guys. Please like, subscribe, comment. Yeah. Thanks for watching, y'all. Bye. Stay woke.